Today we will be talking about Ariel Castro. He shared a rocky marriage with Grimilda, his ex-wife. She eventually left him in the mid-90s after he subjected her and their 4 children to death threats and physical abuse, breaking her nose and dislocating her shoulder twice. He caused a blood clot on her brain which resulted in an inoperable tumour, and he threw her down a flight of stairs, cracking her skull. In 2012, she died due to complications from the brain tumour. In 2004, while working as a bus driver for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, Castro left a child alone on a bus. He was then fired in 2012 after doing it again. Despite all of this, his daughter Angie Gregg thought of him as a friendly, caring, doting man who'd take her out for motorcycle rides and line his kids up in the backyard for haircuts. But all that changed when she found out his secret. She had said, "I wondered this whole time, how could he be so good to us? But he took young women, little girls, someone else's babies away from these families, and over the years never felt enough guilt to just give up and set them free." Castro would later claim that his crimes were those of opportunity. He saw these women and a perfect storm allowed him to snatch them for his own agenda. Michelle Knight was his first victim. On August 23, 2002, she was on her way to a social services appointment about getting the custody of her young son, but she couldn't find the building she was looking for. She had asked several bystanders for help, but no one knew the building she needed. That was when she saw him. Castro had offered her a lift, and she recognized him as the father of someone she knew, and so she had agreed. But he started driving in the wrong direction, claiming he had a puppy at his house for her son. The passenger door of his car lacked a handle as well. She went into his house and walked up to where he said the puppies were, but as soon as she reached a room on the 2nd floor, he shut the door behind her. Michelle would not be leaving 2207 Seymour Avenue for the next 11 years. Amanda Berry was his next victim. Leaving her Burger King shift in 2003, she was looking for a ride when she spotted Castro's familiar-looking van. She then remained in his captivity until 2013. And finally, the last victim was 14-year-old Gina DeJesus, a friend of Castro's daughter Arlene. Her plans to hang out with Arlene fell through, and she ran into her father, who said he could use help finding Arlene. Gina had agreed and went back to Castro's house and didn't leave until 2013. Michelle was just 21 years old when she was abducted. Amanda was abducted the day before her 17th birthday, making Gina the youngest to be held in his captivity. He kept them restrained in the basement before he let them live upstairs, still behind locked doors, often with holes to slide food in and out. They used plastic buckets as toilets, which Castro rarely emptied. To make matters worse, he liked to play mind games with them. He would sometimes leave their doors open to tempt them with freedom and hope. When he caught them, he'd punish the girls with a beating, and he always carried a gun with him to scare them. Instead of birthdays, Castro forced them to celebrate their abduction day, commemorating the anniversaries of their imprisonment. Year after year went by like this, punctuated by frequent sexual and physical violence. The 3 of them started to learn a few things: how to handle Castro, how to get a sense of what was happening in the house, and how to hide their inner feelings. They passed years this way until something changed. Amanda Berry realized the years of sexual assault had made her pregnant. Throughout the years, he'd sexually assaulted all 3 of them. However, Amanda was said to be his favorite. Michelle was pregnant at least 5 times, and Gina as well, but Castro would make sure they'd have a miscarriage. Short of punching the stomach or just beating them, Michelle was beaten so severely she suffered permanent damage to her stomach at the time she was pregnant. However, he continued Amanda's pregnancy. When she went into labor, he forced her to give birth in a kiddie pool. Michelle helped with the delivery, but the baby was not breathing. Gina was then held at gunpoint to make sure the baby was given CPR, and he'd said he'd kill her if the baby didn't survive. However, she had managed to get the baby to breathe and cry. The women lived together but separate. Amanda had her own room with her child, Jocelyn, and Michelle and Gina were kept together. As Michelle was the most rebellious of the group, she often got into a lot of trouble. He'd punish her by withholding food. restraining her to a support beam in the basement, and by frequent beatings and sexual assaults. Amanda would try her best to pretend and maintain a sense of normalcy for her daughter. She also kept a journal of her life in the house and recorded each time Castro sexually assaulted her. Gina faced the same as Michelle and Amanda. All their families continued to search for them, and he would show them the news or flyers about them. He even went to the extent of joining the searches for one of them. In May 2013, after a decade, there was finally a chance to run for hope. Castro decided to go out and leave the door open to Amanda's room, unlocked this time. Jocelyn came to her and told her he's gone. For the first time in 10 years, her bedroom door was unlocked and he was nowhere to be found. She thought this was her chance. She went to the front door, which was unlocked, but wired with an alarm. She was able to stick her arm out through the bottom and began screaming, "Somebody, please, please help me. I'm Amanda Berry, please." She was able to flag down a passerby, Charles Ramsey, who helped break the door down, and he called the police. She then told the police, "I've been kidnapped and I've been missing for 10 years and I'm free now." She begged the dispatcher to send police to help her and the girls at 2207 Seymour Avenue. When Michelle heard banging, she was certain Amanda had been caught by Castro, but she fell into police arms when she realized that she's free now. He was finally caught and arrested for aggravated murder, sexual assault, and kidnapping. He testified on his own behalf during the trial. Equal parts defiant and repentant, he painted himself and the girls as equal victims of his sexual addiction. He claimed that his crimes were not nearly as bad as they sounded, and that his victims lived in some comfort with him as willing partners. As delusional as he was, he said most of the sex that went on in that house, probably all of it, was consensual. These allegations about being forceful on them, that is totally wrong, because there were times where they'd even asked me for sex, many times, and I learned that these girls were not virgins. From their testimony to me, they had multiple partners before me, all 3 of them. In court, he said, "When I picked up the first victim, I didn't plan it that day. It was something that I planned. That day I went to Family Dollar and I heard her say something. That day I didn't say I was going to find some woman. It wasn't in my character." Yet he enticed each victim with tactics, offering one a puppy as she was going to see her child, another a ride as she was his daughter's friend, and asking the last victim to help find his own daughter. He also took advantage of the fact that each victim knew him and at least one of his children. Clearly a vile and deranged man, he was then sentenced to life plus 1,000 years in prison. However, he lasted a little more than a month behind bars, conditions that were much better than what he subjected the girls to. He had committed suicide on September 3rd, 2013, by hanging himself with the bedsheets in his prison cell. Eventually, the house, 2207 Seymour Avenue, was demolished a few months after the crimes were revealed. And that's it for today. See you for the next one.